Hey adapters, I'm Doug Parsons. I'm a partner at Cimpatico Studios where we live stream conversations about complex business and social challenges with professionals like yourself who are working on the same issues. Our shows are live streamed in front of a global audience of your professional peers on simpatico.tv. I'm building a new type of online community for professionals like yourself on the Climate Adaptation channel. If you're a regular listener of my America Adapts podcast, I think you'll find that we're taking our conversations about important problems, policies, and solutions to the next level here. And if you're interested in being a guest, we'd love to hear from you. And now join us for this latest episode. Hey adapters, today our guest is Niyanta Spelman. She's the CEO of Rainforest Partnership. Niyanta previously ran a management consultancy working with Texas environmental agencies and served on the Austin Planning Commission. She now leads a dedicated team in Peru, Texas, and Ecuador to fulfill the international organization's mission to protect and regenerate tropical rainforests. Niyanta will introduce Rainforest Partnership and the creative engagement initiatives. These initiatives work to empower rainforest communities by incentivizing protection and regeneration of rainforests. Niyanta will define and explain what it means to be a rainforest partner and how their contributions translate into actions. Hey Niyanta, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Doug. Thank you for having me.
Here we are, rainforest. We're going to talk rainforest. I'm very excited about this. I think you have extensive experience, and we're going to dig into that. But I'm checking in with folks. I know you're in Austin, but what's going on with COVID there? How's that impacting your work and everything?
So we went remote, like most other people, on March 13th. What was lovely about that for us was that we've always had remote teams. Our teams on the ground in Ecuador and Peru were always remote. Parts of our team here were remote. So what we were able to do was embrace that and slide into it, and we had enough systems in place. And in some ways, it's made for more meaningful collaborations between our team members, and certainly more efficient and effective, if you can believe that. Though it is really tough to come back to where Rainforest Partnership started, which was in the front porch of my house, which is where I'm back again.
Wow, full circle.
Yes.
Okay, so what is Rainforest Partnerships?
So Rainforest Partnership, international nonprofit organization. We're headquartered, as you said, in Austin, Texas, but our work is about protecting tropical rainforests and regenerating as well. What we do is that we work directly with rainforest communities. There are a lot of ways of protecting forests. There are a lot of people think that it was something that was already taken care of in the 70s or 80s. Nothing could be further from the truth, and you know this, Doug. And so what's different about us is that we work directly with communities, but not just communities. It's not just about working directly, making sure that nothing is imposed on our partner communities, and then giving them choices that they want to have. Forest communities want a choice, just like most of us. And the threats to forests are often economic, and economic threats, require economic answers. And so, how do we help the communities have an alternative way of making an income? And then, how do we empower them so that governments at every level understand what is the forest, why, how complex they are, what's the biodiversity in that forest, what is the true worth of that forest, and how do we involve folks at every level and work on the policy and legal side of it as well, but always with the communities playing a role, not imposing. Really important.
So that and I agree that going back a long time, let's protect the rainforest. And I had a question like, is Sting still involved in any way? Or I don't know if you remember back in the '80s, Sting was big on rainforests. I hope he still is. But I'm curious in regards, even with your organization, all these narratives, we should protect it because of the biodiversity. It's important for local communities, but climate change has become an even bigger issue. Is that part of your narrative now on why we need to protect rainforests?
So when we started, Rainforests are very important to me. I'm very connected to forests. I'm very connected to our planet, and there are many of us that are. And so for me, I would like forests to be protected simply for their own sake, because they're magical, beautiful, amazing places, and incredibly important to the balance of our for our planet. But they play such a pivotal role in the climate equation. You know, tropical rainforests make up less than 3% of the surface area of our planet. But in my lifetime, so I'm 55, and I always see people in the audiences like doing a calculation, right? In my lifetime, we've lost half tropical rainforests. And you imagine these forests that regulate our climate, that regulate our water cycle, that hold 50% of our biodiversity. And I actually think that's probably an undercount, right? That produce our fresh water and circulate our oxygen, and all the things they do, they're so incredibly important. And 15% of the forests, 15% of carbon emissions globally annually come from just the cutting and burning and degrading of these forests. And the flip side is, if we manage to protect them, they would be about 30% of the solution in the climate equation. And when you think about it, it's like it is in our human interest to go do something, go do the easiest, fastest, quickest thing to do, as opposed to the amount of money we spend on, electrifying my car or whatever. I mean, driving an electric car or whatever it is. And I've had a Leaf, and I love my Leaf, a Nissan Leaf. But that's just not enough. There are better, easier ways of doing things. And we as humanity, we've evolved to this place where we know what to do and how to do it. Mm-hmm. We have the technology, we have the ability, we have everything at our fingertips, but we don't quite do it.
Well, again, so the opportunity around climate change too, because what you'd mentioned, you love the rainforest, it's my favorite ecosystem, but this notion of the intrinsic value of the rainforest, it's just the reality is that's not the case for a lot of people, it's out of sight, out of mind. And so the notion that these rainforests are going to just play a critical role as we adapt to climate change. I mean, you are hearing more about that in international negotiations. You must see that as a huge opportunity.
So I've been going to the COP. My first, the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, not making any assumptions, that has the climate change conferences. I've been going since Copenhagen, so that's COP 15, where we almost thought we were going to have the agreement that would have, replaced the Kyoto Protocol, and what we ended up getting as the Paris Agreement in December 2015. People have always talked about forests. So you have no idea how many rooms I've been in. People talk about forests as being the cheapest, fastest, easiest way of doing something, and then the actions do not add up. I think it was something like 70 countries that had forest protection as part of their country's plans, and so I'm trying not to talk in technical terms. And yet you don't see the results. And one thing that happened last year, a very sad thing in a way, right? That forests have been burning for decades. They burn every year. The Amazon fires last year that became mainstream, sort of hit mainstream media. And really it was that sort of, fires happened and shrouded Sao Paulo in the middle of the afternoon in darkness, and somehow it got picked up by Reuters and MSNBC, and the next thing everybody knew about it. That probably did so much more than anything any of us could have done for really connecting the huge role forests play in climate. And then people talked about, the fires in Central Africa, and they talked about the fires that were happening in Southeast Asia. And of course, then we had the fires in California and Australia, though people weren't talking about the Australian rainforest really. but they got affected as well. And it sort of raised the consciousness for the first time in a way for a lot of people. And I know because we were getting calls and we were just getting blasted by people. It's like, how did we not know? And why is this happening? People were angry, upset. And yet, we move on, right? How many people are paying attention to forests right now? And I believe we do it at our own peril. Now, here's the thing. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, nor would all these amazing people doing it with me, wouldn't make it our life's work if we didn't believe that there was an alternate trajectory for all of us, for humanity and our planet. The planet's going to be here, right? It's going to be here for another 4 billion years. The question is, are we going to be here in the way we've got used to living in the stable climate and everything else that coexists with us, right? And that's the question. And how important is it to us as humanity that we're going to say, enough? This is really important. And of course, there's a lot of hope, right? The very fact that you had the Paris Agreement in the first place, okay, you and I live in a country where we're the only country where we're trying to get out of the Paris Agreement. I mean, 195 countries, around the world, everybody signs on. Everybody understands that this is something that is an existential crisis and a threat to all of us as a humanity. We're going to do something. So I actually have a lot of hope and optimism, and we're actively working on doing that as Rainforest Partnership.
Well, I agree, and I love your optimism too. And with regarding the Paris Agreement, even though the U.S. is taking steps back, I don't think it got enough attention. The people involved with it were obviously very enthusiastic when it was done. But think about historically, countries around the world came together to try to save the world, and they came together and they signed this agreement. That's quite a thing. I mean, we're still not sure if it's going to.
Unprecedented.
That's exciting.
It is amazing. And what happened in Lima the year before, that people agreed. Each country said, we will find our own way. And so, you can look at all the negative things about how it's not enough, or you can really focus on what is really happening. And the fact that we've had heads of state coming together. The only times I've known heads of state coming together in a 24-hour period, it's 2 times so far. It's been each time around climate change. I think it was 125 one time, and in New York, and then 150 for the Paris when the Paris Agreement happened at COP21. It's unprecedented, and nobody gets the news. I come back, I am so excited about what is happening globally, and nobody knows about it here. And you sort of think, oh my gosh. And then you think, okay, fine, because we're going to continue. And who are we? Who are we who've chosen to do this work? And how do we bring and make that the sort of bigger we to join us? And that's the idea, right? And so you haven't asked me, but it was the day when our president, and we're in the US because I know there are audiences who are not in the US, decided to pull the US out of the Paris Agreement. And what we did was we sat down. I had everybody in my office watch. I couldn't bear it, so I sat on the side and I listened, but I wasn't going to watch. And people were upset, people were crying, people were angry, and my team was. Because very emotional, right? I was in Paris and I'd been in Lima and I'd seen at Climate Week during the UN General Assembly. I had been watching the steps, and I could actually, you sort of connect the dots and you knew where things were going. And that's a whole other conversation. But we said, okay, here's what I said that day. I said, be with your emotion, feel the anger, be upset, cry. But the next day we said, we're not going to wait. We are going to launch World Rainforest Day. And we used the tagline, "Because the world can't wait." And we launched it in 2017, June 22nd, and with 3 weeks to go. And by the way, until last year, I thought we had 6 weeks. And then some press came about when the anniversary of when that Rose Garden press conference was, and it was like, oh my God, did we really pull it together in 3 weeks? And we had 29 partners, actions on 6 continents, and I think what happened was people wanted to do something, and there's so many people around the world that want to do something, that want to make a difference, that want to be part of this positive way of working and hopeful way of working, and changing the trajectory that we're on at the moment. And that's where I am really hopeful.
Well, I had an opportunity to interview Christiana Figueres, the
I
architect of the
saw
Paris
that.
Agreement.
Yes, I saw that.
And
Yeah.
she was annoyed at, the president for what he did, but the question was like, can we get back in? And she's like, the day after you
The
can
day
do it.
after,
She was
which
like,
is why everybody's going
positive.
to vote.
Right. So she was like, listen, we're coming back in. Don't worry about it. And so I loved her optimism. But okay, so you've brought it up. So June 22nd is World Rainforest Day. Can you give us a bit more information about that, though?
Yes. And by the way, I heard, so it's really lovely to listen to Christiana now because she's unleashed. She's no longer at the UN. And she is amazing, um, because she doesn't have to be so diplomatic, and she has such a sense of humor. It's amazing to listen to her now. But yeah, so to emphasize that, and I've been telling people, go vote, because, and we're not a political organization, but guess what? I am a human being that cares about the state of our planet, and that vote will mean that the Paris Agreement will have the U.S. As as a um, as a country that's participating, and it's literally the day after, because what they were very clever when they negotiated this. You needed 3 years before you could bump yourself out. So there's a whole process, right? It's the UN. It's rather bureaucratic, and that's, by the way, the reason why it's an amazing thing, a feat, that you could have a Paris Agreement in place. But so World Rainforest Day, forests are so important, and we've already talked about that. But there wasn't a day to celebrate them, and there are other days. And so in 2014, there was a team member who said, "Why isn't there a World Rainforest Day?" I'm like, "Don't know." And so we grabbed the URL. Turns out somebody else had grabbed the same URL 4 days before, and we called her up in the days you could call, because people's information was there. And she's like, "Oh no, she's saving it for another nonprofit." So we did the .com, and we sat on it, and then we were in New York during Climate Week, and we picked June 22nd as the date. And really, my rationale, there was a board member, a team member of mine, an advisor, and I. And the rationale was, it's 2 months after Earth Day. And basically, January, February were not great months. We had Films for the Forest in March. May is too close to Earth Day. June 8th, World Environment Day. June 8th, World Oceans Day. Get to July, August, nobody is paying attention because everybody's on holiday. By the time you get into September, October, November, people are thinking Christmas, right? And so it's like, okay, June's got to be it, and how about 2 months later? So we launched it, and the numbers of people who've said, "Oh my God, did you realize it's summer solstice?" Well, it's summer solstice if you're in the northern hemisphere, but it's also, and you can move by a day. But there's something very universal about that, and seriously, I did not think about June 22nd as being the solstice, right? And so we picked it, and a couple of years we couldn't quite launch it, because our main work, of course, is the work we do directly with the communities. And this is something we wanted to do. And to me, it was really important, the sort of second side of our mission is, how do we raise awareness? How do we bring everybody else together? Because you can do all the work you want to do on the ground with communities. But you know what? If the rest of the world doesn't understand and is not aware, for what we're doing and how we're doing it and how that's affecting and imposing all these choices on our partner communities, then nothing changes. It's sort of this David versus Goliath thing that just continues endlessly, right? And so how do you activate a global community? And we can be the biggest organization and we couldn't do it alone. It needs all of us. This is a problem that needs all of us to work together to solve. And so we're very collaborative as an organization. We'd already proven that by doing Films of the Forest, which is an international short film competition we started in 2010. And by the way, we had films from 7 continents this year. It's the whole side thing, and from 20 countries. But so launching World Rainforest Day was the way of bringing people together, organizations that do the work we do, like the work we do, but there's a spectrum of organizations that focus on rainforests, whether it's journalism or it's policy level, it's at country level, or it's very specific to a small little region or several countries, right? We all do it differently. But how do we bring all of us together? And then how do we bring everybody else together? And so the idea was, how do we basically raise awareness, activate people, and celebrate these forests, this incredible ecosystem. And then the rest of us who do this all day long will continue all year long. And how do we bring on ever increasing numbers of people to do stuff? And so the only last thing I would say is this year, check out worldrainforestday.org and you will see so much happening, so many partners, and from panels to aquariums doing things to films to people who can actually do actions in person rather than digital. There's just so much happening on the day, and it's all over the world. And so it's pretty amazing just in 4 years. Yeah.
Well, a great thing to celebrate. And so someone can visit the website, and if there's, even if you're an individual seeing this, what, and something that they can do to help.
So yes, a couple of things. So first, I always tell people the easiest thing, and it's, awareness is where it starts, right? So if you don't do anything else, if you can just take a moment and just take a breath and then thank a rainforest. And know that you just connected to the forests, trees, forests, circulate our oxygen. But other than that, take an action. Whether you start asking where is the meat you're eating coming from, or does the thing you consume have palm oil on it, or even just planting something in your garden, take an action and then share it. And tag, hashtag World Rainforest Day. And then finally, it's really important. There are many of us who are doing this work, and there's never enough funding. And of course, we'd be so honored and we would love to have your support as Rainforest Partnership. But really, you can choose among so many organizations, and they're listed on worldrainforestday.org. And that's what this is about. It's going to take all of us working together, and it cannot be, just pick us because we're better than anybody else. No, it's not going to work that way. It's how are we going to be collaborating as human beings, as communities, just as our communities work together in the forest. We, the rainforest community, rainforest organizations community, need to do the same thing, and you'll see organizations large and small that are partnering and taking actions. Yeah.
Well, excellent. I think we got the message out on World Rainforest Day, and we're at the end of our episode here. And before we wrap up, I did want to ask you: do you have a favorite rainforest?
That's really tough, but
Pick one.
My Peru team's not going to like me to do that. I can't do favorite. I love personally cloud forest, and I have 2 favorite places. You cannot make me choose one. There's a waterfall in San Antonio in central Peru in that community that I just absolutely love, and there is my Friends Bioreserve just north of Quito I love, and then there is this tree, and that's Las Galerías, Reserva Las Galerías, and then our partner community of San Isla, that forest and the mother tree there. I would say I'm supremely connected to it, and that forest is just gorgeous. And
I can tell from your smile. Yes, just an
yeah,
affinity for
beautiful.
that. Well, this has been great, and I think we're just scratching the surface. We'd love to have you back on because there's still so much more that we needed to dig into in regards to some of the work that you're doing. And I could talk about rainforest all day and maybe some specific project work that a local community is doing. So
Yeah,
lots of ideas that we could do on Cimpatico and what you're doing here. But again, thanks for coming on, and I want you to stick around. We need to do a few other things, and we're going to go into this just chatting section when the episode's over. But thank you so much for the work that you're doing, and thanks for coming on.